Hello guys, welcome to the channel. And yeah, inspired by my learning, language learning, and delving into a bit of computer science and natural language processing, or big data in general, as you may call it. And also, of course, my previous experiences, I wanted to talk a little bit about the individual as a data point. Actually, this was triggered, as we know, we are like since a long time already in a big data environment. And actually, we have always been that way also. So maybe what is happening now is just an acceleration of the times that we basically had always, where some kind of knowledge was produced and this knowledge was analyzed and interpreted. Now we have machines more and more doing a lot of this work, which has some inherent risks in it. And I wanted to talk about these risks because in the end, the data points that we collect are individuals if we apply it to human beings or data about human beings. So there's a lot of, especially in Europe, initiatives going around on attaching rights, privacy rights, so at least, or usage rights of data points by the individual to give them kind of property over their data, and also maybe financial benefits when the data is used instead of only opt-out options, opt-in options, etc., which nobody can really understand anymore. So we consent to things we don't even know where they end up with. And I think these are good initiatives, but what I just listened to, actually several times, I listened to several different things, and the algorithms also, of course, play their own things afterwards due to what I've seen previously or what they suggest are my interests. And there was a really good talk that I saw. I linked it under like the description about why I made this video here. It was a talk on knowledge production here, like focused on the Arab world, and it got some really interesting subjects that were spoken of. For example, like what counts as knowledge? How do we make these different definitions, these categories, these labels? Which ones set are actually developing some kind of own power because we want this world to adapt to these categories that we create as human beings, actually, because we need some kind of rules according to which the world functions and that we can kind of grasp and understand. So it's really easy to set up these rules actually and these categories, but it's if you don't feel like you fit in one of these categories, it will become extremely hard for you, or let's say even for the programs to analyze you. But still, they run it through as if you are in the categories that were predetermined for you to be in. So that actually led me to think about something that I encountered during my religious studies when I was a kid in my high school in Emmerich am Rhein. I linked it also. It was in the 90s. I don't exactly know which date, but at one point we had like a caricature of the individual, like the being, I call it here me. And this individual was held by several strings, because it was like to make the point clear that we are not individuals. We are not like independent. I mean, it's clear from birth. We are born by parents usually that guide us, or we absorb the environment, and it's everything. So I made a little mind map today where I was in the cafe and listening to several things, trying to prepare a presentation also, but I put that on a side burner for now. And I quickly drew what I still remembered and like how I expanded this caricature that I saw at the class in 1990. And so I put me in the center, and then like a little bit of factors that influence me. This is just exemplary. You can do that for yourself. You can think about what makes you, you, and put like the factors in. And for me, these are unlimited factors. I can't make a proper separation, which is why also maybe the ones closest that kind of influence me, make me, but then there's all of these points. I made the dotted line to show that it's infinite. At every point of our life, we have influences which correlate with each other. So we can't even say what starts which one, but there's always reaction, counter reaction. And from those experiences, you learn as an individual also, as well as machines learn. But the problem about the machine is that they are pre-trained according to certain models. They will adapt if they gather more data, but some data is not even captured. And if everything is captured, of course, if we are very transparent then and very easily to predict to a machine. But if this machine is wrongly set, there's wrong predictions, which could lead in turn to you having a lot of problems in your life, because these machines, like Yuval Harari, for example, says, are more and more determining actually and enforcing the future and suggesting us things. For example, like algorithms, they suggest you certain things because they observe what you have done before and predicting what you want to click on to gather the more and more money basically by click rate, etc. for those platform providers. But yeah, I wanted to bring it back just to raise a bit these kind of problems and how to navigate these kind of problems. I mean, the first thing is to realize and to observe, I think, what I kind of makes you you, and be aware of how this could be in a certain way manipulated. I say that it's unavoidable. Like, you are manipulated by everything, by colors, by interpretations you put into colors. For example, if you look into art, there's color theories, but those are also mainly cultural interpretations of colors. So it depends which culture you grew up with, and cultures are not unilateral. I mean, in one individual you can have many cultures that influence you, that make you you, and your interpretation of the color may depend also on other external factors that are currently putting their effects on you and your interpretation of them. Plus, it's not only mind and interpretation, there's also, of course, hard facts. If you learn as a kid, for example, like you say, you put your hand on a stove that is lit on, and you will see that you burn yourself. You will probably not put it a second time on it. Or you will make the experience of how long you can put the hand on the burning or like the warm thing, and you see, actually I can put it for a few milliseconds, and maybe it will even be more after a certain time. Like, if you go looking at cultural differences, I, for example, remarked that many Europeans can't hold a warm, let's not even say a hot, but a warm cup of coffee or tea for a longer time in their hand, because they're not trained to hold it. If I look into, for example, Ethiopia, where a lot of cooking is even done by hand, they can like cook the bread on the stove with their hands. They can hold often, not everybody, it's individual again, no generalization, but they can hold the coffee for like even a burning hot thing for a very long time without hurting themselves. Which leads also to like your mind, how much do you actually pay attention to the feeling of pain, or not even pain. If you know that your mind can handle and your body can handle this and this, you may feel the pain later, even though the pain is there. So this is a protective measure to not hold it until the last point. Or is it just you got used to it, you know you can do it, okay, let's continue. So to just go back to the whole avoiding manipulation and not get caught up in what I call myself a rat race. So meaning like you are working according to these algorithms that induce you with small rewards for every millisecond of your life, basically. You're just running in it. It's absolutely important we learn to zoom out and not forget the big picture of our own lives. Since if we believe in agency in our own life, we also have to be able to kind of know ourselves, observe ourselves, and how we react to certain, let's say, enticements or reward mechanisms or like seductions also. It means we need to kind of keep the capacity to hold ourselves back. Of course, this should not be exaggerated, but as we are also like action and reaction models, basically react to certain things we find beautiful, we find ugly, we find good smelling or bad smelling, we can train ourselves also towards these things. And a proof is maybe you had things as a kid that you didn't like to eat. Like for me, maybe it's fish or like things with a very strong taste. And over time you do develop maybe the complete opposite taste, that you like a lot the things that actually have a lot of taste and less those that have less taste, meaning stronger flavors. So the human being is very adaptable. And I mean, you probably observed that with yourself, that you change behavior, likings, dislikings at some times. And things are not so much set in stone also with us. Especially the body. If you, for example, have an injury, especially when you're young, it heals kind of fast from injuries even by itself without much doing from external factors. Also the mind is very expansive and changes and builds new connections. When you learn languages, when you learn anything, new connections are built in your mind, which makes it easier to learn other things afterwards. Also, for example, I have it in my own family, a case where unfortunately, it happened to my mother. A lot of her brain exploded. She got out of it very fine. She relearned how to talk, basically, and how to understand things, because new wirings of the brain were going around where actually like a big blood clot was in her brain. And she's almost back to normal, and in a few things even better than normal. but in a few things also less. So we're very adaptive to circumstances, even if it's body, brain, or like other things we receive, we have like a receptor for in our environment. And I wanted to just show you that this becomes a problem as we change, but not necessarily the algorithms that want to put us into fixed categories sometimes. And in order to make that better, it would be great, of course, if those people who set up the algorithms have a bit a look at the individual, and they don't interpret data from like big groups only. As we know, most of the data interpretations, they go by a norm. They establish a norm, they see what is going out of the norm. And the norm is nothing but a collection of like, I don't know, trillions or billions. How many people do we have on the planet if you talk about people? 7 billion or 8 billion, I think, data points. And from that you can make a norm, which is also context and society specific. But you have this norm, and if you deviate from the norm, there are interpretations attached to it. But if you don't have enough data points, or like wrong data points or wrong interpretations, or one guy interprets somebody who says the word, let's say a derogatory word, with like bad, for example, like in English, as you may know, the meaning bad can mean really bad, but also in some contexts can mean the opposite, good. But if you have a guy that looks at the data, looks, hey, this guy said bad, so this has to be bad. But in actual terms, the guy who said bad wanted to mean good. I think you get the point. Then we have the complete opposite reaction to this uttering, and the complete opposite analysis of the data. In the end, the complete wrong solution that the algorithms or the gatekeepers of the interpretation of the data propose, which leads to wrong decisions. For example, like insurance decisions, police decisions, or whatever, which can reinforce cycles of basically oppression due to data points or categorizations that are inherently wrong. So I wanted you to think a little bit about it. And since most of these transference or, let's say, mechanisms of interpretation are not very transparent, you can learn through observing, though. Just observe what is happening in your life, in which circle, at which points, with which people, in which context, and try to adapt to the context. But it is, of course, very difficult, and context can change extremely fast. And if you're used to navigate like several cultural complexes, even more. And you also do sometimes a misinterpretation of your situation, of course. So it's a pretty complex matter, but I would always advise for, like, if you find some time to step a bit back, analyze the situation around you, and try to analyze yourself also how other people could see you, and try to conform to the rules that are set up in this environment where you are, in order not to be an outlier. You can still keep being an outlier, but just that the reaction which you probably also have made in your life experiences, if you are constantly an outlier, it can lead to extremely harsh reactions, or like slowly, incrementally building up like distrust of people. Sometimes people also like it and are attracted to outliers, but you will be in a position where people watch you, and that's not necessarily a comfortable situation. But just for yourself, also to think about like what makes yourself basically, and to know yourself better. I mean, that's the first point. But then what's also important is the perception of others of yourself. Can you change something from it? Probably yes. Can you change something in a way that you would like? Probably also yes. But it's highly context specific, and also depends on the experience of the other person, which will be many persons in some cases, and their perception of yours. It's a complicated and complex matter, and I wanted to have this just a little impulse for you to think about this and the relevance of it for your own life. Thank you very much. Hope to see you soon. Bye bye.